All right. Howdy, students. Let's get started. I like this story. I always heard about the fable. Remember, a fable is sort of a moralistic story with an animal as a protagonist in it. And I've always heard about this, but I didn't know the story. Excuse me. And it's a good story. I really like it. It's called Puss in Boots. Here's a picture of the guy. Okay, here we go. There once was a miller who at his death had nothing to leave to his three sons except his mill, his donkey, and his cat. The eldest son took the mill, second took the donkey, and as for the youngest, all that remained for him was the cat. The youngest son grumbled at this. My brother, said he, will be able to earn an honest living, but when I have eaten my cat, ooh, that didn't sound too good, and sold his skin, I shall die of hunger. The cat, who was sitting beside him, overheard this. Nay, master, he said, don't take such a gloomy view of things. If you will get me a pair of boots made so that I can walk through the brambles without hurting my feet, and give me a bag, you shall soon see what I am worth. The cat's master was so surprised. And I start talking, I start coughing. The cat's master was so surprised to hear his cat talking that he at once got him what he wanted. The cat drew on the boots and slung the bag around his neck and set off for a rabbit warren. When he got there, he filled his bag with bran and lettuce, and stretching himself out beside it as if dead, waited until some young rabbit should be tempted into the bag. This happened very soon. A fat, thoughtless rabbit went in headlong, and the cat at once jumped up, pulled the strings, and killed him. Puss was very proud of his success, and going to the king's palace, he asked to speak to the king. When he was shown into the king's presence, he bowed respectfully, and laying the rabbit down before the throne, he said, Sire, here is a rabbit which my master, the Marquis de Carabas, or Carabas, either way, desires me to present to your majesty. Tell your majesty, said the king, that I accept his present, and I am very much obliged to him. A few days later, the cat went and hid himself in a cornfield and laid his bag open as before. This time, two splendid partridges were lured into the trap, and these also he took to the palace and presented to the king from the Marquis of Carabas. The king was very pleased with this gift and ordered the messenger of the Marquis of Carabas to be handsomely rewarded. For 2 or 3 months, the cat went on this way, carrying game every day to the palace and saying it was sent by the Marquis of Carabas. At last, the cat happened to hear the king was going to take a drive on the banks of the river with his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world. He at once went to his master. Master, said he, if you follow my advice, your fortune will be made. Go and bathe in the river at a place I will show you, and I will do the rest. Very well, said the miller's son, and he did as the cat told him. When he was in the water, the cat took away his clothes and hid them, and then ran to the road, just as the king's coach went by, calling out loudly as he could, Help, help! The Marquis of the Carabas will be drowned. The king looked out of the carriage window, and when he saw the cat, who had brought him so many fine rabbits and partridges, he ordered his bodyguards to fly at once to the rescue of the Marquis of Carabas. Then the cat came up to the carriage and told the king that while his master was bathing, some robbers had stolen his clothes. The king immediately ordered one of his own magnificent suit of clothes to be taken to the Marquis. So when the miller's sons appeared before the monarch, that's the king, and his daughter, he looked so handsome and was so splendidly attired that the princess fell in love with him on the spot. This cat is very devious. He's very smart. He's got things arranged. I think cats are sort of like that. They're a little bit more independent than dogs, maybe a little bit more than a little bit more. Anyway, the king was so struck with his appearance that he insisted upon getting into the carriage to take a drive with them. The cat, delighted with the way his plans were turning out, ran on before. He reached a meadow where some peasants were making hay. "Good people," said he, "if you do not tell the king when he comes this way that the meadow you are mowing belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall all be chopped up into little pieces." So the cat has issued a warning to these folks because he wants them to say that these fields belong to the Marquis. When the king came by, he stopped to ask the haymakers to whom the meadow belonged. "To the Marquis of Carabas, if you please, your majesty," answered they, trembling, for the cat's threat had frightened them terribly. The cat, who continued to run before the carriage, now came to some reapers. "Good people," said he, "if you do not tell the king that all this farm belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped up into little pieces." The king again stopped to ask to whom the land belonged, and the reapers, obedient to the cat's command, answered, "To the Marquis of Carabas, please, your majesty." And all the way the cat kept running on before the carriage, repeating the same instructions to all the laborers he came to, so that the king became very astonished at the vast possessions at the Marquis de Carabas. At last the king arrived at the cat. At last the cat arrived at a great castle where an ogre lived who was very rich, for all the lands to which the king had been riding were part of his estate. The cat knocked at the castle door and asked to see the ogre. The ogre received him very civilly and asked him, "What do you want?" "If you please, sir," said the cat, "I have heard that you have the power of changing yourself into any sort of animal you please. I came to see if I could possibly see it, and it was true." "So I have," replied the ogre, and in a moment he turned himself into a lion. This gave the cat a big fright, and he scrambled up the curtains to the ceiling. "Indeed, sir," he said, "I am now quite convinced of your power to turn yourself into such a huge animal as a lion, but I do not suppose you can change yourself into a small one, such as a mouse, for instance." "Indeed I can," cried the ogre indignantly, and in a moment the lion had vanished, while a little brown mouse frisked about the floor. Boy, this cat, you gotta watch out for him. He's tricked this ogre into changing from a lion to a mouse. What do you think's gonna happen? I got an idea. In less than half a second, the cat sprung down from the curtains and, pouncing upon the mouse, ate him all up before the ogre had time to return to any other shape. And when the king arrived at the castle gates, there stood the cat upon the doorstep, bowing and saying, "Excuse me, welcome to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas." The Marquis helped the king and the princess to alight, to get down, and the cat led them into a great hall where a feast had been spread for the ogre. The king was so delighted with the good looks, the charming manners, and the great wealth of the Marquis that he said the Marquis must marry his daughter. The Marquis, of course, replied that he should only be too happy. And the very next day, he and the princess were married. As for the cat, he was given the title of Puss in Boots, and ever after only caught mice for his own amusements. So we can assume that after this, his master, the fake Marquis, has rewarded him, given him a nice place in the corner, soft bed, and feeds him everything he wants. I like that story. You got to watch out for those cats sometimes. All right, let's do the question set. What did the miller leave to his younger son? His mill, his donkey, his rabbit? Nope, it was his cat. So one son got the mill, one son got the donkey, but he got the cat. And he wasn't happy with it. What is the main problem with the youngest son faces? He does not know how to run the mill. His father left him. He is poor and thinks he has no way to earn an honest living. A robber stole all his clothes while he was bathing. That's a problem, but not the main problem. And really, his clothes aren't stolen is all. And D, he cannot swim and might drown while bathing in the river. But the answer is, he is poor and thinks he has no way to earn an honest living. He's disappointed when he gets the cat because he thinks, how am I going to earn any money off the cat? I'll eat it and sell the skin, which sounds just terrible. What is the main problem that the younger son faces? Just did that one, sorry. The cat is very clever. What evidence from the text supports this inference? The cat asks his master for boots in a bag. That's pretty clever. The cat tricked the ogre into turning into a small animal the cat could eat. The cat knocked on the door of the ogre's castle. The cat happened to hear the king who was going to take a drive. I think the height of his cleverness probably pertains to the ogre, because a cat can't take an ogre, but he tricks him. He uses he appeals to his ego. He says, wow, you can turn yourself into something big, and he turns himself into a lion, but can you turn yourself into something small? So by appealing to his ego, he tricks him and makes him vulnerable. I guess our egos make us all vulnerable in a way. Based on the evidence in the text, what might have motivated the cat to trick the king and get a castle for his master? The cat hated the king and wanted to fool him. The cat was angry and wanted to scare the laborers. The cat was hungry and wanted to eat the ogre. The cat wanted to prove his worth to his master. He didn't want to be eaten and skinned. So the answer to that is D. Okay, theme. Remember, theme is always the moral of the story. Fables almost always have morals, and they're more obvious in fables than they are in other stories. Treat others as you wish to be treated. Do not underestimate others. Do not make promises you cannot keep. It is important to be forgiving. I say that the moral is don't estimate others. This cat is a trickster. In the Indian stories that I've read, Coyote is always a trickster. The only trouble with Coyote is it's another sort of fable, animal, moral. The only trouble with Coyote is he always goes too far. He's a trickster, but he always goes too far and he gets himself into trouble. All right, number 6. Why might the author have used the word grumble to describe his eldest son's reaction to what his father left him? And I think the answer to that one is C, to suggest that the youngest son was displeased with his father had left him. He started grumbling. Number 7, choose the answer that best completes the sentence. These are always grammar questions and they're joining words. So let's keep the meaning of the sentence and add some words and to do that. The cat scared the haymakers into telling the king that the meadow belonged to the Marquis of Carabas. As a result, on the other hand, as an illustration, on the contrary. As a result, the king became very astonished at the vast possessions of the Marquis de Carabas. And we know that the Marquis of Carabas is just the miller's youngest son, and the cat has tricked the king into thinking that he owns all this land. Okay, let's do number 8. What did the cat first tell his master he would do if his master brought him boots? He told him if he had gotten put boots and a bag, that he would help his master. He would help elevate him from what he was. He would be beneficial to him. Number 9, that tells the king that some robbers had stolen his master's clothes. How does the cat's master benefit from this action? Well, the master benefits by getting a good suit of clothes so he doesn't look so poverty-stricken when he goes to see the king. So it helps him ingratiate himself with the king, as have the cat providing game every day for the king. 10, explain how the cat showed his master what his worth. Well, he showed him by tricking the king into thinking that his master was wealthy, and he marries his daughter, and he gets a big castle from the ogre. All right, we got time. Let's do one more story. Scroll on down here. My list. Puss in Boots. I loved it. It's a little bit of a younger. Even Puss in Boots might be for younger people, but its meaning carries through. Okay, let's do this one. It's called Trading Pumpkins, and it is fiction. Notice all the stories I'm giving you, even though they have truth that you can take from the story, they're all fiction. They're not poetry, they're prose, and they're fiction. They're not true. Okay. Tammy lives on the Little Acres farm with her family. It has been in her family for generations now. They have almost everything on the farm, including apple trees and corn. For animals, they have cows, chicken, horses, and oink oink, pigs. The only problem is they don't have many pumpkins. In October, they sell tickets to the farm and create a maze made of hill bays. They call this the Haunted Maze. However, people like to see pumpkins on Halloween, and the farm doesn't have very good pumpkins. For some reason, they never grow properly. People who visit in October always complain about the lack of pumpkins. So they got a big farm. They have a lot of holdings. It's been in the company for years. But the problem is they can't grow pumpkins very well. The funny thing about Little Acres is that it's actually enormous. In fact, it's the biggest farm in the area. There used to be a bunch of small farms in the area, but they couldn't compete with Little Acres. After a while, they all agreed to sell their property to Tammy's family, all except one farm, the Shelbys. The Shelbys won't sell their farm under any circumstances. Supposedly, Little Acres farm will go to Tammy when she grows up. She isn't all that interested, though. She likes having the haunted maze, but she thinks it'd be better with pumpkins. One morning, Tammy's father called the family meeting. The Shelby farm is planning a haunted maze this year, Dad said. Oh, no, said Tammy's mother. That means they're going to compete with us, take away our business. Well, we'll just have to make ours bigger and better, Tammy suggested. How can we do that without decent pumpkins, Tammy's brother asked. I need someone in this family to go over to the farm and see what they are up to, referring to the Shelbys. Dad said, Tammy, you're very diplomatic, so I want it be you. Can I trust you to do a good job? Of course you can, Dad, she said. I'll find out what's going on and come back with a full report. Tammy felt like a spy from Little Acres. Early next morning, she awoke and took her bicycle from the barn. She rode for quite a while with a basket on the front of her bike. Hot wheels were wobbling. Her wheels were wobbling on the dusty country road. When she got to the farm, Mr. Shelby was staring at piles of hay in front of the barn. He was scratching his head and looking confused. In his hand was a bright orange pumpkin. Hello, Mr. Shelby, Tammy yelled from the driveway. Mr. Shelby didn't seem at all suspicious. He didn't know she was a spy. I was just coming to see if you, she paused. She hadn't thought about what to say ahead of time. I wanted to see if you had any pumpkins. Don't you have any pumpkins over at the farm, Mr. Shelby asked. Well, said Tammy, sort of, but I thought maybe yours were stalled for a moment, not wanting to lie, but not knowing what to say. I thought yours were more orange. You thought my pumpkins might be more orange, she asked. Yeah, our pumpkins are kind of green and they don't grow properly. Mr. Shelby shook his head. Tammy, why are you really here? A shaky feeling rose in Tammy's chest. She started to breathe heavily out of fear. She was frozen in place, unsure what to do next. Excuse me, Tammy, why are you here? And then quite suddenly, Tammy ran right at Mr. Shelby. He looked very startled and let out a small yelp. He didn't move out of the way. After all, he was 6 feet tall, and she was just a child. She lunged at Mr. Shelby and snatched the pumpkin right out of his hand. What on earth, he exclaimed. That's a $10 pumpkin. It's a big pumpkin. Tammy put the pumpkin in the basket on her bike and started pedaling down the driveway. I'm going to tell your parents about this, he said, shaking his fist in the air. They'll have to pay for that pumpkin. You owe me $10. Tammy was halfway home before she realized what she had done. The dust from the dirt road kicked up all around her and turned the bright orange pumpkin to a dusty shade of brown, she got home, she showed the pumpkin to Dad. You stole a pumpkin, he asked. You were supposed to find out information about their haunted maze, and you just stole a pumpkin? Dad was so disappointed. Tammy looked at the ground and blushed. I'm sorry, I panicked. She really had panicked. She'd never stolen anything before in her entire life, and here she was. And here she was not only taking some of Mr. Shelby, but took it right out of his hands. I thought I could trust you to be diplomatic, Dad told him. Took the pumpkin from Shelby, got into his car. He left the driveway and turned in the direction of the Shelby's farm. He was returning the pumpkin. About 3 hours passed while Tammy waited for her father to return. When he finally did, he was not only holding one pumpkin, but a whole basket full of pumpkins. Did you steal more pumpkins, Tammy asked. Of course not, her father said. We brokered a deal. A trade? For what? Yes, well, first of all, I apologize to Mr. Shelby on your behalf. He knows that you know what you did wrong and that you just panicked. That's true, but what are you trading? I told him that as an apology for your theft, you would go back over to this farm and teach him how to make a haunted hay maze. But Dad, I had a very long talk with Mr. and Mrs. Shelby. We came to the realization that we'd all be better off if we worked together on the maze instead of competing. After all, stealing that pumpkin and running away didn't work very well, did it? Tammy nodded. It hadn't been a very good plan, and the Shelbys did have a great big barn. Her father handed her $10. She knew what to do with it. Tammy got on her bike and rode back to the Shelbys. When she got there, she gave him 10 and apologized for stealing that pumpkin. He said he forgave her and immediately put her to work. She showed Mr. Shelby how to stack the hay to create a difficult maze. She showed him how to set up the directions, how to dress up like a scary monster, and stand right at the entrance. Then he gave her pumpkins to take home. It had been a good day's work. When Halloween came, Tammy's father went to the Shelby's farm. At the end of the driveway was a sign that said the Shelbys and 10 acres and the Little Acre Farm present the haunted hay maze. Don't forget, Little Acres Farm is very big. Hey there, Tammy, Mr. Shelby said, waving her over. Would you like some hot apple cider to celebrate our new maze? I sure would. Tammy had initially gone to the farm to spy on Mr. Shelby and maybe even sabotage him, but it turned out that working together was a better idea, at least for now. All right, simple little story. Had a little twist to it, which was she panicked, stole the pumpkin, and ended up working with the Shelbys. Very interesting. All right, let's do the questions here. What does Tammy's family build every Halloween? They build a hay maze. I don't know if we have those in Spokane. I know we have some haunted houses. Probably got a maze somewhere in a little bit out of town. Anybody remember The Shining and the maze in there? That was sort of scary. Okay, what main problem does Tammy's family have? Main problem is their Halloween maze doesn't have good pumpkins. It's just not a pumpkin growing family. They're good on the maze only. Tammy's family is worried about the Shelby Farm hay maze. What evidence in the past supports this? Okay. Tammy's father sent Tammy to get information about Shelby Farm. He wants to check out what they're doing. You know, what's going on? Are they going to have a maze? What's going on with their pumpkins? Okay. When she got to the farm, Mr. Shelby was staring at piles of hay in front of the barn. He was scratching his head and looking confused. In his hand was a bright orange pumpkin. All right, we're on number 4 here. Based on this information, what can you conclude about Mr. Shelby? He doesn't know how to build a hay maze. D is the right choice there. He doesn't know how to. Tammy does. Tammy's family lacks good pumpkins. Shelby has beautiful pumpkins. They make a deal. What's the main message of the story? I'm going to go with A here. Sometimes it's better to work together than to compete with each other. That's what ultimately happens in the story. All right, read the following sentences. Well, said Tammy, sort of, but I thought maybe yours where she stalled for a moment, not wanting to lie, but not knowing what to say. More orange. More orange in reference to the pumpkins. She's just making up. She doesn't know what to say. She gets panicky as to why she's over there. I got to hold the father a little bit guilty as well. Sort of, he's a little deceptive. Okay, stalled means delayed. Like when your car stalls, it won't start, it's delayed. The other homonym for our stall, of course, is the horse's stall. I believe it's spelled the same way. All right. Choose the answer that best completes the sentence below. Instead of competing against each other, Little Farms and Shelby Farm agreed to work together. So it is B instead. All right. We're coming down to the end. These are the short answer questions. Why is Tammy's family worried about Shelby's farm hay maze? Well, it's competition. It was Tammy's family that had the only hay maze in the area, and now the Shelbys are going to build one. So the competition, you're sort of splitting the available people to visit the maze. Number 9, what trade does Tammy's father make with Mr. Shelby? Well, the Shelbys use or learn how to make a hay maze, and they provide the pumpkins. And Tammy's father shares in the profits because his daughter has taught them how to make this maze. Maybe supplied the hay, I don't know. Probably not. Okay, number 10, explain why it's better for Little Acres and South Shelby Farm to work together. I think it's better for them to work together because they each have their strengths. Little Acres, they've had a hay maze in the past. They know how to market it and how to set it up. Shelby Farm has pumpkins that people like to look at when they're coming to a hay maze. It's picturesque. It's representative of the season. All right. Glad you could be here for today. Tomorrow's already Thursday. Everybody come on back. Do couple more passages. Get you ready for your GD. Remember, if you need a code to take a practice test, which is always a good idea, just get in touch with Caleb Palmquist, and he will, hope I said his name right, Palmquist maybe, and he will provide you with a code. Take a practice test right in the comfort of your own home. All right. See you tomorrow.